Hello and welcome. Today's topic is smart home, specifically smart kettles. And I have not one but two here from the company Govee to check out. How smart are they? How well do they perform? And which is the best option? Stick around and let's try to find out. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just say, Alexa, put the kettle on, and she would just do it for you? Well, that's one of the things that you can do with a smart kettle. Now, recently we decided that we needed a new kettle, and being a smart home fan and already owning some Govee equipment, including some plugs and lights and other devices, I decided that Govee would be a good choice. But when I looked online, I found there were actually two standard smart kettles from Govee, the Smart Kettle and the Smart Kettle Lite. So I figured, well, let's get both so we can see which one is the one for us. And that's our focus for today's video. Now there's quite a bit to cover here, so I'll place the chapters up here and on the video timeline. But before we get into it, very important to stress that this video is not sponsored, paid for, or influenced in any way. I purchased all of these devices with my own money, and the opinions are entirely my own. And of course, if you enjoy today's video, get good information out of it, remember to give us a like and also consider subscribing to the channel for a lot more similar content. So let's get on with it. So before we get into the differences between these kettles, let's first talk about the similarities. So basically they are both smart kettles that will boil water or heat it up to a temperature that you specify, including assigning to up to 4 different customizable modes. They will also keep the water at that temperature for a period that you can specify. They both have the same capacity at 1.7 liters and are both rated at 1500 watts. When it comes to controlling them, they both offer Bluetooth or Wi-Fi control, connect to a smartphone app, or will also integrate with your Google Home or Amazon Alexa system. When it comes to the differences, apart from the obvious design differences, the standard smart kettle is made of metal, whereas the light version is made of plastic. The standard version has this base which incorporates 4 buttons and a display, whereas the light version has just 3 buttons on the handle of the kettle itself and a few LEDs for showing the status, as well as a programmable light which can be customized to show which mode the kettle is currently in. Now, both of these kettles, of course, are intended as smart kettles, so you can operate them through an app or other automation. But of course, you can operate both of these kettles completely standalone, and we just want to go through the basics of that in this section. So let's start out by reviewing the basic operation of the light version. So the Smart Kettle Lite is operated using just these 3 buttons. You have an on-off button, a mode button, and a keep warm button. The on-off button, of course, powers on the kettle, and it immediately starts heating to the previously used mode, which in this case is the boil mode. There are 4 different modes which are preset in the factory. We have a boil mode, a tea mode, a coffee mode, and a DIY mode. Now, each of these comes preset, but of course you can go into the app and customize each of these 4 modes. Then there is a keep warm button. You'll notice if I hit that, the little keep warm light comes on here. So with this enabled, when it reaches the target temperature, it will maintain that temperature for a preset time. The factory default is 30 minutes, but that can be adjusted for up to 2 hours. Now, operation of the standard smart kettle is very similar, but in the case of the standard smart kettle, the buttons are on the base instead of on the kettle, and you also have a more detailed display. When I hit the power button, of course, it powers on the kettle and immediately begins heating using whatever mode was previously selected. On the display, we can see that mode M1 here and the target temperature of 212 degrees, and you can see the current temperature also displayed here. Now the modes on the standard smart kettle are slightly different. We have M1, which is boil or black tea, M2, which is green tea, M3, which is oolong tea, and M4, which is coffee, and you can see the corresponding target temperatures here. Now, while the standard smart kettle does not have the ability to enable and disable the keep warm feature, that can only be done through the app, it does have the ability to adjust the target temperature using the plus and minus buttons here. So while it is currently in mode 4 with a target temperature of 205, I can adjust that temperature here, and 3 seconds later that target temperature will be accepted and it will begin heating to that temperature. Okay, so before we can use the smart features of the kettle, of course, the first thing we need to do is set it up in the Govee smartphone app, and that's what we're going to do now. Now, we are going to do the setup using the standard smart kettle, but the setup process is identical regardless of which model you have. Okay, to start out, we plug in the base, we place the smart kettle in it, and then we're going to go ahead and launch the Govee Home app. At the top right of the screen, you can see there is a plus icon to add a new device. And as you can see, it has already discovered my new smart kettle. I simply press add, then it tells me as soon as the Wi-Fi indicator flashes white to press the power button. I can choose a custom name. And while I'm doing this, you'll notice that my linked Alexa account has already added my new smart kettle. Next, I add the device to my Wi-Fi network, and a few moments later, setup is complete and we are ready to use the smart kettle. Okay, let's look at control of the Govee smart kettle using the app. So we're going to launch our Govee app, of course. So you can see at the top of the screen here, I have a temperature control where you can simply dial in whatever temperature you want. I've chosen 144 degrees Fahrenheit, and I can hit the on button. As you can see, the power comes on and the target temperature is 144. Also, of course, I can select from the presets down below, mode 1. It asks me to confirm. And mode 1 is the tea or boiling mode, as you can see, 212 Fahrenheit here. Mode 2, confirm, 180 degrees, that's for green tea. Mode 3 for oolong tea, 195, and mode 4 for coffee at 205. Now, these are referred to by their mode numbers instead of the name, and we'll see that later when we deal with operation through a smart speaker. There's also a keep warm function here, which as you can see is currently on. I can set it to anything from 30 minutes to 2 hours. So once it reaches the target temperature, it will keep it at that temperature for the specified time. And of course, I can also turn that off. The display up top, as you can see, shows the current temperature, and as you also just noticed, it changes color as the temperature increases. If I want to turn the kettle off, I hit the big cancel button, and it immediately turns it off. Now, as far as these modes are concerned, I can hit the little settings icon here, and I can go in here and I can edit them. I can give them a different name, a different target temperature, but again, these are referred to by their mode number. if we go into settings, obviously I can change the name, I can turn the beep on and off, I can be notified when the water is ready through my smartphone. Similarly, for a boil exception notification, I can set my temperature units here also. And that's about it for the standard smart kettle. Okay, let's contrast that with operation of the Kettle Lite. So once again, we're going to open up our Govee app. This time I'm going to select Smart Kettle, which is the name I've given to this one. You can see that the operation is very similar. You have your custom temperature up top, and down below where it's a little bit different is in terms of the modes. So first of all, the modes are referred to by their names. You have boiling mode, tea, coffee, and DIY mode. And under tea, you can then choose between 3 different versions. You can see I have green tea, I have black tea, and I have oolong tea. All of those will show up in the tea color. We'll get to that in just a moment. So let's say I set it to coffee. I hit power on, and of course it comes on in coffee mode. And what's really nice is you get this nice customizable color here in the window. And as you can probably see also, coffee, the coffee display light is also illuminated. Cancel to turn off, of course. Let's say we select green tea, we hit on, so it comes up in the green mode, which I currently have selected for tea, but this will not change if I select black tea and confirm. It will change the target temperature, but it doesn't change the mode or the color. Same if I choose oolong tea, you can see the same thing. If I select coffee, of course, it will change the mode. If I select my DIY mode, it will change the color. Boiling, you get another color. Once again, you have the keep warm function here. And let's go into the settings briefly. You can see once again we have water ready notification, boil exception notification, Wi-Fi, temperature unit. Here's an interesting one on the mode indicator. You can customize which color you want to have for which mode. And also worth mentioning, when it comes to your custom modes, you can actually add as many modes as you want. So let's say I want an additional coffee mode. I can add in coffee 2 with a target temperature of, let's say 200, confirm. And now I have a coffee 1 mode and a coffee 2 mode. And now you can see under my selections, I have both coffee 1 and coffee 2 that I can select from. And I can do this in any of the 3 common modes. Okay, so that covers operation using the Govee app. The next thing we want to cover is integration with your smart speaker, whether you use Google Home or Amazon. Now, I use the Amazon version, so basically all I'm going to do is open up my Amazon app and simply go to more at the bottom here, and you'll see here skills and games. And if you haven't loaded it already, you will find there is a skill called Govee Home, so the first one on this list here. So as you can see, I already have this skill enabled and connected. So if you don't have it already, you'll need to add it into your system, and you'll need to link with your Govee account. So you do need to have a Govee account. It's completely free to sign up, and then you simply link them here. Then it will automatically discover all your Govee devices, and they will be ready to use within your Amazon or Google system. Now, what's also pretty useful is if you add additional Govee devices, it will automatically discover them and make those available straight away as well. And you saw an example of this earlier when we did the initial setup of the smart kettle. So once your smart kettle is connected to your Google or Amazon system, then you are able to control it using voice commands, or you can also set up routines based on all kinds of triggers, whether it's a motion sensor, proximity sensor. You can basically get as creative as you like. As far as what you can do through Google or Amazon with these, it's basically identical. There is a small difference that we'll talk about in just a moment, but basically you can power on the kettle and set it to a specific temperature, which looks something like this. Turn on the Govee kettle.
Okay, at what temperature?
200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Preheating Govee kettle to 200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Of course, you can also have it heat to one of the presets. Smart kettle to coffee. And of course, you can power off the kettle. Alexa, turn off the smart kettle. Now, when it comes to the preset modes, that's where the two kettles are slightly different. With the light version, as you saw previously, it has 4 modes called boil, tea, coffee, and DIY, whereas the standard smart kettle, as we saw before, uses mode numbers, mode 1 through mode 4, and that's how you address them using voice control. So with the light version, that looks like this. Alexa, smart kettle to boiling. Smart kettle to tea. And with the standard version, that looks like this. Govee kettle to mode 1. Govee kettle to mode 2. So I would say in this regard, the light version actually is a little easier because you don't have to remember which mode corresponds to which temperature. Now, obviously, it's very cool to be able to remotely operate your kettle, but it does raise a safety concern, and that is what happens if you turn on the kettle remotely and it doesn't have sufficient water in it. Well, both kettles are equipped with a boil-dry shut-off feature that detects if the kettle is getting too hot or too hot too quickly, and it will shut it down. But I thought it would be a good idea to test this out to see it in action. So what I did then was emptied both kettles, powered them on, set them to boiling, and to see exactly what would happen. So starting out then with the standard kettle, here you can see I place the empty kettle on the base and I power it on, set it to boiling. And after a few seconds, as you can see, it detects that there is insufficient water. The boil dry feature kicks in, and I get a notification in the app to tell me this. Now, when this occurs, it is no longer possible to use the kettle until it has cooled down sufficiently, and that takes around about 1 to 2 minutes. Now, with the Smart Kettle Lite, the boil dry feature also worked successfully, but not quite as effectively as we saw with the standard Smart Kettle. And once again, we powered on the empty kettle. And once again, after a few seconds, the boil dry feature kicked in. You can hear the kettle shutting off, but you do not get any notification in the app. Now, I was a bit concerned that I had basically killed the kettle at this point, but after 1 to 2 minutes, there was an audible click and the kettle was back online again. So what's the verdict and which one is the best choice? Well, one thing we haven't talked about so far that I think is important in this discussion is the price. Now, the standard kettle has a list price of around $90, whereas the light version has a list price of around $60. But if you check them out on Amazon, and I'll place the links in the video description, you'll find they are almost always discounted. The standard version typically at around about 30%, which brings the price closer to the $60 mark. With the light version, I regularly see discounting around 40%. I've even seen 50%, which puts the price around about $30 to $35. As far as functionality is concerned, they're basically the same. although I do prefer on the light version how the modes are referred to by name rather than by number, and I also like the color-coded lighting on the front to show you exactly what the kettle is doing, even at a distance. But in the case of the standard kettle, you do have a higher quality finish, and you do have more detail on the display of the base itself. And I do have to say that although for both kettles the boil dry feature did cut in effectively, clearly the implementation is a little bit better on the standard kettle. So that wraps it up for our review of the Govee Smart Kettle and Smart Kettle Lite. I hope you enjoyed the video and got good information out of it. If so, please remember to give us a like and also consider subscribing to the channel. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, if you have suggestions for future videos, please drop those into the comments section. Otherwise, thank you for watching.